Hey guys, Daphne here. I'm a mom of two, a volleyball coach, and a handcrafted enthusiast. In today's video, I'll talk about induction, which I've gone through twice. Let's get into it. You've heard me say this before, every pregnancy is different and everyone's situation is different. For both of my deliveries, I had gestational diabetes in my pregnancy. And leading up to the 40-week mark, I was showing signs of what's called placental failure, which is very dangerous. So there were a lot of really good reasons for me to try to be induced and to get baby out once we could see on ultrasound that baby was to term. If I'd had my way, I would have rather not go through an induction process and rather my babies come out when they were ready to on their own time. But with gestational diabetes, there's a high chance of induction based off of how your body's responding to it. With my son, I was on insulin, and that can be very dangerous for the placenta. So I was induced at, I think, about 38 to 39 weeks. With my daughter's pregnancy, I actually wasn't on insulin, but I started noticing close to the end of my pregnancy that I suddenly was able to eat foods that I couldn't the whole 40 weeks. And again, that's a sign of placental failure. I had very regular ultrasounds due to my condition, and so we could see on ultrasound that the babies were fully developed and were considered to term, and it would be safe to go through with an induction. In order to give birth vaginally, two things have to happen. Your cervix, which is the opening to your uterus, has to lower. It's usually facing more towards your back. It has to lower and come down, and it has to open. All induction methods try to get this to happen. You might have heard about something called a sweep. This video isn't actually about sweeps, but I'll just take a second to tell you what they are. In a sweep, your medical care provider, whether it's your OB or your midwife, will try to reach in and sort of run their finger along the inside of the cervix. Now, in order for that to happen, your cervix has to be reachable and it has to be not completely shut closed. For me, I was never low enough to even be able to reach it, so it was never going to happen. From what I understand, sweeps are considered very safe to do, but at the same time, they may not work. They may be very ineffective. And again, you have to kind of be primed and ready for a sweep. What I'm going to talk about going forward is mechanical and chemical induction. The two are very different. With mechanical induction, we're talking about a Foley catheter or Foley balloon. We're literally talking about a balloon, and it's inserted into the cervix and it's filled with water. It's meant to sit between you and baby and provide just a little bit of pressure to see if you can kickstart the process. So you have this balloon in you, and then you have the mouth of the balloon, or it's like a tube that's hanging out of you, and it's taped to your leg. It's not the most comfortable thing I've ever experienced. And it's kind of jarring to be walking around and feeling it tugging at you. Getting it inserted is kind of like a really bad long pap test. Once it's taped to your leg, you're actually sent home and you're supposed to just go about your day for about 12 hours or so. It may not fall out on its own, and then you go back in 12 hours and they will reassess you. However, it might fall out on its own before then. With my son, it actually didn't come out after 12 hours, and I had to have it in for another 12 hours, and it still didn't come out. When I returned to the hospital 24 hours after having it inserted, they actually removed it. With my daughter, it actually fell out after maybe 8 hours, and nothing happened after that, and I slept for 4 hours, and then we returned to the hospital 12 hours from insertion. In both cases, it did not start active labor. Getting the balloon in is not going to kickstart active pushing labor. I would guess that if that happens, you were likely going to do that around that time already anyways. So that's mechanical induction. Then there's chemical induction. Now, I don't know too much about chemical induction because I actually didn't do it, but I did do some research, and I understand that it's like a tampon that's inserted that has a chemical in it that's supposed to kickstart the process. I was told that the chemical induction can be a little bit risky, mainly because it's in a prescribed amount. They can't control how much chemical you need to get started, and they can't actually control the progress. So things could go very quickly or not. And you actually don't want things to go too quickly either. So I opted to go the mechanical route both times, and it worked out pretty well for me. In both of my deliveries, the mechanical induction just kick-started the process. So I think I got maybe 2.5 centimeters. With my son, after 24 hours of having the balloon in, they made the decision to break my water to try to get things going a little faster. With my daughter, the balloon and my mucus plug fell out, so it looked like I was proceeding. They didn't break my water at that time. It later broke while I was laboring. When I was admitted to the hospital, I was put on a Pitocin drip. Pitocin is what they use to continue the induction process. They started me off on a really small amount, and then every hour or so, they would slowly increase it. So that way we were seeing a gradual progression to the process. Everything was done as a small little step, and they monitored the baby throughout the whole thing. Little side note, with my daughter, my water had broken naturally. However, it seemed like things were still stalling, and we weren't really sure why. And we realized that while it broke kind of at the top, we realized that the bottom was still full of water. So they actually broke my water again manually a second time, and that really got things going quickly. With both of my deliveries, I got to 4-5 centimeters quite predictably. It was a slow progression, and it made sense that I was about 4 or 5, and then I kind of stalled a little bit. And then suddenly I was at 9-10 centimeters, and it was time to get ready to push. Now, I don't know if that's just me or just luck or chance, or that's how things are supposed to go. But in both deliveries, it was slow, progress, nothing happening for a while. And then all of a sudden, within like an hour, everything changed. Get ready to push. And that's kind of it. When you get to that point, they've successfully induced you. You're ready to push. For the sake of closing off the story, I did vaginally push out both of my children. I did not require a C-section, even though sometimes I felt like maybe that might be the end result, because my son took 2 hours of pushing to come out. My firstborn, my son, required a vacuum in order to get his gigantor head out, and my daughter did not require any assisted delivery. With both of my kids, I did have tearing, and I tore differently for both. That's all I'm going to say. Both babies were born healthy. My son just over 7 pounds and my daughter just over 6 pounds. Now here's some tips if you have to go through induction yourself. Number 1, don't set any expectations. The process can take sometimes very long or very short. Don't expect that if you're going to get induced on a scheduled day that you will be home that evening with your baby eating dinner. It just may not happen. For both of my deliveries, the day that I was scheduled to start the induction process, so the actual balloon insertion, not sweeps, my kids were born 2 days later. Number 2, if you have an at-risk pregnancy, it's a good idea to research your induction options. I actually didn't take the time to research ahead of time, and as a result, that meant a lot of Googling when we had to make last-minute decisions at the hospital. Talk to your doctor about what they would recommend for you in an induction. Would they recommend a mechanical route or a chemical route? Hopefully having some information ahead of time will avoid you the stress that I had to go through. And tip number 3, try to rest when you can. It can be a really draining process to go through an induction. Like I said, it can be a really long process. Both of my kids did not want to come out. They were perfectly happy and wanted to stay in my belly. The first time around, I brought books and puzzles and things to do, and really I should have just taken that time to rest, because it can be very draining, and then when you get to a point where you have to push or maybe even go for a C-section, you want to have some level of energy. I hope this video was helpful for you if you ever need to go through an induction. The induction process can sound really daunting and scary, but having gone through it twice, I can say in hindsight that it's really not that bad, and you're informed every step of the way, and it can be a long process or it can be a short process. If you're at any stage of pregnancy, whether you just found out or you're really bursty, I recommend you purchase the pregnancy planner. The planner has fillable calendars for every step of the journey from day 1 to week 40. It has checklists to help you plan out every corner, every item of your pregnancy, your delivery, and your baby's needs. It also has weekly and monthly status pages where you can keep track of baby's growth and your symptoms, and your mental health, which is super helpful when you're visiting your medical care provider. The planner is mirrored off exactly what I created for myself in my first pregnancy and makes a wonderful gift for a mom-to-be or as a keepsake for yourself. Check out the link in the description to head to my website where you can purchase the pregnancy planner as well as some of the other creations that I have. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment. I'll try to respond to you. Also, I'm on Instagram. Follow me at daffodils.designs and at pregnancyplanner.ca. Thanks for watching, guys.